Hi, everybody. Welcome to CELPIP Live. Thank you all for joining us. If you're new here, let us know in the comments below where you're joining us from. Before we begin our show, let's go to our trivia question for the day. Which island is home to Canada's smallest mountain? Which island is home to Canada's smallest mountain? I would appreciate if you did not Google or ChatGPT the answer to this question, and please let us know your guesses in the comments below. Anybody who correctly guesses, their responses will be shared towards the end of our segment. For now, let's begin our show. Welcome back. If you're new here, CELPIP Live was made for test takers like you to understand a little bit more about the CELPIP test. So if you're about to write the test or are preparing for another one, I would recommend that you subscribe to our channel and click on the bell icon to be notified as soon as we go live next time. I see that somebody has joined us from Ontario, Canada. Welcome, Archit, to our show, and I hope you find a lot of use in this episode. Today's episode will be about correcting common writing and speaking errors. So over the course of many years, we have seen trends and patterns amongst our test takers. And we are here to talk about the common errors that we find that our test takers often make when doing their speaking and writing tests. So if that's something that you're interested in, I would recommend that you stay on so that you and I can invite our guest for today. Hi, Brandy. Welcome to our show.
Hello. It's nice to be back. How are you doing today, Ashwati?
I'm good. How are you?
Not too bad. The fall is upon us. It's a relatively cool day here, which is actually welcomed after the hot summer we've had. But it's really nice to be here. And I recognize a few of my regular Zoom webinar attendees who've already said hello into the live chat here. So hi, gang, and welcome in. Our Chit in particular is always quite active in my webinars. And today's going to be interactive here on YouTube. So I encourage all of you to also put your ideas into the Zoom chat once we get, or the YouTube live chat once we get going.
Yes, Brandi delivers so many webinars and presentations that it's almost second nature for her to talk about Zoom. If you don't know, we do have like recurring Zoom webinars on our website for if you'd like to participate in group prep webinars. I think our website is a great place to go, as well as CELPIP Live. Anyway, Brandy, I will let you get started.
Fantastic. All right, I'm just going to pull up my presentation for today. And as Ashwati said earlier, today's episode is focusing on both writing and speaking errors. We're going to examine some common errors that people make as they practice for CELPIP or even take the test. We're also going to do some practice activities so we can learn how to fix these mistakes as we're studying from home to avoid making those mistakes on the real test so that you can support a stronger test score. So I'm going to go back and forth today between speaking and writing activities just to keep the episode flowing with some interest and some variety. And I'm going to start off today with the speaking performance standards. So when you are taking your CELPIP test in the testing room, you have to imagine yourself sitting in front of your computer, you're wearing a headset, and you have a microphone attached to that headset. And when it comes time to deliver your answers for all 8 speaking questions for CELPIP, you're going to speak out loud and simply record your answer into that microphone. And it's the recordings that you make that are going to be sent out to the rating team. This is a group of raters that are listening to your answers. And their job is to assess your speaking performance in 4 key skills categories. And the very first one that we're going to examine together right now is called listenability. So the rating team will literally ask themselves, as they're listening to your responses, how easy is it to listen to you and understand your response? So there are many little skills or factors that they're tasked with assessing. So of course, they have to assess how clearly you are speaking. So your pronunciation, the speed at which you speak, the volume as well. All of these foundational skills are, if you do them properly, are going to help your listener understand you a lot more clearly. The rhythm and intonation of your speech is another common factor that, first of all, we need to understand And second of all, we need to deliver accurately on the test itself. Your intonation, by the way, is how the voice goes up and down as you speak. So when we ask certain questions, or if we're not sure about what we're saying yet, quite often the intonation will go up. When we're finished speaking, though, and we've made a point, the intonation will fall. We're going to examine some intonation patterns in today's episode so you can recognize what it sounds like to speak with proper intonation. Other skills that we need to practice at home and recognize would be speaking, hopefully, smoothly from beginning to end without pausing, without interjecting, and without stopping to correct ourselves over and over again. And last but not least, your grammar and your sentence structure will be assessed in this particular aspect as well as the rating team listens to you. So to really hone our ability to identify what proper listenability skills sound like, what we're going to do is listen to two different real CELPIP test takers deliver an answer when they took CELPIP at some point in the past. So I'm going to just set up this question for you very quickly. And then as you're listening, what I'd like you to do, please, is to write into our live chat here to identify which of these 4 common listenability errors you're noticing as this man is talking. So we're going to hear a little clip from a speaking task 4, which is where we're given a picture and we have to make some predictions about what could possibly happen next. So I'm not even going to show you the picture for the scene because right now we're not at all interested in the content. We'll save content for another day. Right now, what I want you to do as you hear this man speak, try to detect which of these 4 possible errors is the most obvious challenge for him. So maybe it's a pronunciation issue. Perhaps you can't understand the words clearly. Maybe it's an intonation issue where the voice is not rising or falling where it should. Maybe he's self-correcting over and over and interrupting himself. Or perhaps it's a speed error where he's either talking too quickly or too slowly. So we're going to play about the first 40 seconds of his answer. That will be good enough to get your ears in tune with what he's speaking about. And as soon as you're able to identify the error, please let us know in the live chat. So let's play that first clip now.
From what I can see in this picture, what will happen next is the customer who is having the barcode item scan barcode by the cashier, and the service staff would pay for the item and would be stepping out of the store. The father or the elderly companion with the 2 children playing with the watermelons was walking towards them. He will probably tell them not to play with those watermelons and not to play with the fruit.
Okay, that's enough. So let me know as soon as you have figured it out. One of these common errors is the most obvious as it pertains to the speech that we've just heard. And Ashwati, if you'd like to play along with us, you're more than welcome to do that. You can either write the full word or just choose the letter.
So we have correcting himself and then C as the more popular choices.
Okay. I'll give it just a few more minutes here. I will say to our viewers too, there's a little bit of a delay from when I ask for your input and from the time you have to write the question. So we'll give you just a few more seconds. We might get some other ideas in. So everyone's going with C. Oh, and by the way, I can't see your answer. So that's why I rely on Ashwati to read them out to me. So I assume everyone's going with C. Is that's
yeah, there are a few people who are, so it's between B and C.
Okay. Well, would it surprise you to let you know that nobody has it right yet? The correct answer here is speed. This man spoke clearly. Yep, pronunciation was fine. Nobody chose A, so I'm glad of that. His intonation was fine. There weren't any real self-corrections, and self-corrections happen when we start to talk. We go back just a minute. You know what I mean? Like you're constantly interrupting yourself to get that flow. And this man did not have any trouble at all with the flow of the piece. In fact, it was almost the opposite. When he started off speaking, he was using a fairly comfortable speed at a natural pace. But all of a sudden, towards the end of the response, he got really, really quick and every idea flowed together. And then he calmed down again. So that was a speed issue. And the reason I wanted to start with this clip is because as though it seems like it would be relatively easy to identify if we're talking too quickly or too slowly, clearly it's not, as nobody chose speed as the possible answer today. So what I'm going to encourage you today leads into my next solution for these problems is when you're doing your own practice from home, which I presume you're doing before you get into the testing room, I want you to actually record your voice as you're speaking. You can speak about anything you wish, or go to our CELPIP.ca website and get your hands on our 2 free practice tests. You will have 16 practice speaking questions there at your disposal. Take any one of those questions you choose and record yourself answering. You will be able to detect, I hope, whether you're speaking at the right speed. If you are rushing too quickly, like this man was, I want you to be able to identify it. And then, of course, you need to be mindful as you're speaking in the future to slow things down a little tiny bit. We can't fix a problem until we know that we're performing poorly in that area. So this is just something to be aware of. If you had never considered the speed of your voice before, I want you to really pay attention to that in your speaking practice. So this was a speed issue, plain and simple, and it's pretty easy to fix once you know you're making that kind of a mistake. Anyway, let's move on to our second CELPIP test taker now. I'll set the scene for you quickly before we hear the clip. This is a speaking task 8 performance where we're given a picture and we're asked to describe unique aspects of the scene. So in this particular test question, a man is describing a concert performance that he's watching, and he is supposed to invite his friend Katia to come join him. Again, we'll play the first about 40 seconds of his answer, and I want you to focus on which of these 4 mistakes he might be making. So maybe it's a volume issue where you can't hear him clearly. Maybe he's yelling into his mic for all we know. Perhaps it's an interjecting issue. So listen carefully as he's speaking. If you detect a lot of ums and ahs and they're interrupting the flow, then that might be the problem here. Maybe it's an intonation issue. Maybe the voice isn't rising and falling where it needs to be. And last but not least, could it be a pausing issue? Notice if he stops talking for any length of time in the middle of his answer. So again, let us know what you think the problem is, and we'll play the response for you now.
Hey Katya, so I'm standing outside the Capilano suspension bridge. I'm really excited to see it. But right outside there's these 2 street performers who are really amazing. One of them is a bucket drummer, so he's taken all these kind of household implements and containers and he's using them as drums, and he's doing a really great job. And in this musical arrangement he's being accompanied by another guy who has wine glasses with different levels of water, because you know how the trick where a glass filled with a different level of water creates a different note.
Okay, and we stopped it there because that's enough. The rest of the response is more or less the same. What do you think? Let me know. This one I think is a lot more challenging than the first one you did. So we'll see. We'll see how many people get this one right. I'll give you some time to think about it.
Hi, Brandy.
Hi.
So we have, overwhelmingly, like the choice is B at the moment.
Okay.
And then a couple of people said volume. I'm assuming that's what you mean, Shivam, when you say voice is breaking. Yeah, volume. Oh, now we have C.
Okay.
So volume, B, and C.
Okay. Really, there was only one of these factors on your screen. Only one of them was evident in this man's voice. And the correct answer here is C, intonation. Intonation, from my own experience teaching all of these Zoom webinars that I do every single month, intonation tends to be one of the most challenging aspects of the listenability factor. A lot of my own students as well, they have a hard time detecting when intonation is being used well and not. So really, really quickly, I even put a little visual here on screen to remind you what intonation is all about. Again, it is the way that the voice will go up and down as we speak. What this man lacked was, frankly, much intonation at all. So that when he spoke, his voice was almost on a flat note or a monotone. I'm going to demonstrate right now kind of how he sounded as he spoke. So as this man was delivering his response, he sounded a little bit like this, where the voice was sort of devoid of energy and there really wasn't a lot of emotion in the voice. Okay, so when our voice follows that even keel or that one note, or sounds like we're delivering a monologue, it's a monotone, there isn't any emotion that comes across in the voice. Just listen to my regular speaking voice right now, and you'll detect that my intonation is rising and falling in a very natural way. So we want to have those inflections. We want to hear obvious rises and falls where they're meant to be in order to convey the right emotion. Part of the extra problem with this particular test question is that this man is supposed to be inviting his friend to join him at a concert. And because he has no emotion in his voice whatsoever, he sounds almost bored to be there. And why would his friend want to come down and join him at a concert if he doesn't sound excited to be there? So once again, when you are actually practicing your speech at home, this is a really good one. Record your voice, listen to it back. And if you notice that you were speaking in that monotone, sort of like this man was, then that's a clue for you that you just need to work a little bit more on adding that energy to the voice. The other slight problem that this man also demonstrated using intonation incorrectly is that his voice went up quite often when it should have fallen instead. So for instance, he would say things like, one of the musicians is a bucket drummer. There's wine glasses with different levels of water. And when the voice goes up like that, it indicates that you still have something to say, when in fact, the man was actually finished describing that part of the scene and should be starting fresh. So the voice needs to fall there instead. So just to really put this into perspective, what I'd like to do now is I went and asked one of my colleagues on my team here. His name is Tony. I gave him the transcript of what this CELPIP test taker just spoke aloud to us. And I asked Tony if he wouldn't mind recording his own voice, just speaking naturally as he would in real life. And I explained to Tony that we're trying to demonstrate today what it sounds like when we speak with proper intonation. So as we play Tony's version of this same response for you, please listen carefully for the intonation in his voice. I want you to notice that Tony sounds actually excited to be there. And I want you to also notice how his voice is going to rise and fall appropriately. So let's listen to Tony now.
Hey, Katya. So I'm standing outside the Capilano suspension bridge. I'm really excited to see it, but right outside, there's these two street performers who are really amazing. One of them is a bucket drummer, so he's taken all these kind of household implements and containers, and he's using them as drums, and he's doing a really great job. And in this musical arrangement, he's being accompanied by another guy who has wine glasses with different levels of water. Because you know the trick where a glass filled with a different level of water creates a different note. So he has all these glasses in front of him.
And so on. Notice the falling intonation right at the end. He's got all these glasses in front of him. We know now he's finished with that point, and then he would continue fresh. Anyway, just a little exercise in intonation, something for you to be aware of when you listen to your own recordings that you make. When we learn intonation properly, you don't even have to think about it. It just sort of comes naturally as we speak. But if you're not using any intonation yet, it's something that you'll need to be mindful of. It definitely helps your listener stay engaged and be interested in what you have to say, but you're also helping them understand when you're finished speaking and when you have more to add to the situation. Anyway, enough about speaking for a moment. We'll do a couple of other speaking exercises in a little while here, but I wanted to switch gears and talk a little bit about the writing performance now. So when you complete your writing test for CELPIP, there will be 2 activities for you to complete. Task 1 is an email. Task 2 is a survey response. And there is a different group of raters that are going to read through both of these responses you'll create, and they are tasked with assessing you as well on 4 key areas. So the one we're going to start with right now is called readability. And the rating team here is going to ask themselves, how easy is it to read and understand your response? So once again, there are several little skills and factors that need to be taken into account. So the first ones are more about formatting on the actual computer screen. So format, spacing, and paragraphing. Format speaks to conventions of writing. So when you're writing an email, do you have your greeting? Do you have a couple of paragraphs there with your details? Is there a sign off and a signature? When we see that, we know immediately we are looking at an email. Spacing is so helpful for your reader as well. So we know that we're going to leave a space between sentences. We know that you've got different paragraphs each time you have a new main idea. And you're going to help your reader by leaving one empty line between each paragraph rather than submit a gigantic block of information. So these skills are incredibly helpful for your reader to quickly find the information that you're conveying as you write. Connections and transitions also are helpful when you know how to use them the right way. They're difficult, they take more practice just because there are so many words or conjunctions that we use in English. But when we take these short little sentences, we want to find a way to put a conjunction between them so that we're creating these longer, more complex structures. Transitions as well are going to elevate the interest and the sophistication of your writing. Basic conjunctions, when we're just beginning to learn how to write or how to speak in English, a lot of us will overuse the very simple words like and, so, and but. You can use those once in a while, but we want to start learning different connections. Words like because, although, even though, and transitions like another reason is, on the other hand, alternatively, and so on. So we'll look at these transitions as we get into our examples today here. Your grammar, your sentence structure, no surprise, it's going to be evaluated here as well. And things like spelling and punctuation would be part of that too. So we're just going to focus on these readability factors as we examine 2 different paragraphs that I've prepared for you today. This first one is one that I just wrote myself really quickly, as I wanted you to have a quick look at it. And then over on the right-hand side of the screen, you'll notice 4 particular errors that belong to the readability section of the writing. So as you're reading over my paragraph here today, let me know right away, please, if this is a space, if there's spacing mistakes, perhaps you notice some punctuation errors, or some spelling mistakes, or even some capital letter errors. So take a quick read through. Let me know as soon as you're aware of what the problem is. Once we know the problem, we can fix it.
Hello.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. At the moment, the answer is A, spacing.
Okay. We'll give it just a moment more. Any other answers?
A. So it's between A and then B.
Okay. So some of us are saying A, some of us are saying B.
Mhm.
You're kind of, I can honestly see why you would suggest B, but the correct answer here is A, and let me explain what I mean by that. So this is a spacing error, plain and simple. So I'm pointing, as you can see with these arrows, to where the punctuation marks are. So there are 2 commas on the left. A comma is like a little sort of curved line. We use a comma in writing when we are pausing or when we've got 2 separate ideas within the same sentence. So we want to put the comma to show where those ideas are found. On the right-hand side, you notice there are 2 periods, which are like the dots or the full stops. And we use a period, of course, when we end a sentence altogether. So every single time we use either a comma or a period or other punctuation marks too, you're supposed to leave 1 space. So this is the easiest mistake to fix of all of your writing assessment for the test. Literally, you hit the space bar on your keyboard just once after any of these punctuation marks. So if you could look at where I'm pointing with those arrows, keep your eyes open, don't blink or you'll miss it. I'm going to fix the spacing for you now, and that's it. That's all that has to be done. It is such a subtle change. So again, I'll go back to the mistake, no spacing at all. And then as soon as we add that 1 space between every single punctuation mark and the next word, what we're doing for the reader is we're now making it so much easier for them to quickly just skim read this over and identify where these ideas begin and end. Your job as a writer is to make the reader's job as easy as possible. So spacing might not sound like a big deal, but it truly is. Imagine it. This is just 1 paragraph. Imagine I'd given you 2 pages worth to read through and I didn't have any spacing between sentences. Your eyes would be exhausted by the time you got to the end. So do your reader a favor and hit the spacebar between each sentence. That's an easy one. Let's go on to a more challenging one. So this is a portion of an actual CELPIP test taker's response to a writing task 2. This was the survey response. I myself have tweaked it and revised it just a little bit to get it short enough today so we can work with it in session. Clearly, I'm not showing you the whole thing, but if you could read through this 1 paragraph and let me know when you know which is the most obvious mistake for writing here. You'll notice on the left, you've got choices between paragraphing. So right now we've only got 1 paragraph on screen. Maybe you decide that there should be 2 paragraphs. I don't know, you tell me. Verb tenses, have a look through, make sure the verb tenses look okay. Maybe it's the connections. So maybe we don't have any joining words at all, or perhaps we're using the wrong joining words, or perhaps it's another spacing mistake. So have a little read through there. Let me know what you notice to be the most obvious mistake here.
Hello again.
Yeah. This one's not as obvious, I don't think anyway. So I'm challenging you right now.
Oh, can I?
Yeah, for sure.
I think it's connections.
Okay, you're going with C.
Okay. I mean, depending on where we are, it's either A or C, in my opinion. But please, okay, I hope you all chose C, not because of me. Um,
Is that what's happening? Everyone's saying C, 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 C.
yes, except so Shivam says B.
Okay.
And then we have C, 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 C. And then Shivam says could be A.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, I think we're all over the place. So other than D, which I think is
I just realized I made a mistake. I put at the bottom A again, spacing. That should be D, spacing. I apologize for my mistake. But yeah, but
okay.
the error still stands. Did anybody choose spacing?
I don't know because nobody said D yet.
Okay, good.
So sorry, if you chose spacing, can you just put D instead of
Yeah.
A?
My mistake.
But no, I just want to say that A, B, C are all across the board. Like,
Okay.
I mean, I would say
we're-
C is like skewed a little bit more high. Like there are more people choosing C than there are A and B, but
Okay.
yeah, A, B, and C.
Okay. C is actually the correct answer. Yeah. Working with connections is more of a, I'm going to call it more of an intermediate skill. Sure, beginner level learners are learning how to use words like and, but, and so, and some other words to connect ideas. But to really get the hang of creating longer, more complex sentence structures, we're really performing more at about a level 9, I would say. That's sort of the distinction in the marking criteria. What really distinguishes the level 8 writers from the level 9 is people's ability to use connections properly to showcase how all the ideas fit together and to also create more interesting, more complex sentence structures. All of those elements are going to help support a stronger writing score on the CELPIP test, but also make your writing more interesting in the real world too. So what I'd like to do is let's workshop this paragraph. And it is just one paragraph right now. We're talking about one main idea about, having Save on Foods, which is the name of this grocery store, offer more international foods. So the paragraph there is fine. All the verb tenses are just fine. No mistakes with the grammar as well. But what I'd like us to do as we look for ways to connect these sentences together, there are many ways we could do this, but just for time's sake and for focus, could we find one particular word called a conjunction that we're going to put right there between these first two sentences that is going to combine them together effectively? Look at the way these two ideas fit together in meaning. So on the first sentence there, we get our opinion that this grocery store should increase its variety of multicultural foods. And in the second sentence, we get that the grocery store only has one aisle currently of international food. So which word makes the most sense here? What's the very first word that comes to your mind that you would want to put there to connect these two together? Don't overthink it. Just go with what seems natural and suitable. I'm hoping there's a word that just pops out and we can move on. This is the easiest one to connect of all the ideas here.
Okay. Archit says because,
Okay.
which is Save on Food should increase its variety of multicultural foods because it only has one aisle of international food offerings.
Okay.
As, which is, I guess, the similar as because.
Yeah.
As, and then one person said and.
Okay, here's what I'm going to ask you never to do. I can't say don't ever use the word and, because clearly there will be times when and just makes sense. But what I'm going to tell you now is the word and is probably one of the most used words in all of English. So if you can ever avoid using the word and go with a different word, I want you to go with the different word, because and is just so simple and basic. So we try to avoid it when we can. I went with because, like Archit did, but the word as would mean the same in this context. So the good news when you're working with conjunctions and connections and such is that you usually do have a choice. There's usually more than one word that makes sense or more than one way to do this. All right. So again, I already had because there, so I'll showcase that on screen. But if you went with as, that also would have worked. So that was sort of the easy way to do this. So instead of having two simple sentences as we started, by adding this conjunction, we now have a complex sentence structure. And more to it, rather than complexity is a good thing, yes, but now we also have demonstrated the relationship between these ideas. We're using because to really emphasize a cause-effect situation. So it's because there's only one aisle of international foods right now. That's the cause of the situation. So the result is we want to increase. We want more aisles. So we use because when we want to emphasize that cause and effect. Well done there. The next two sentences, I'm just going to put sort of a square bracket around them to try to show where they fall within the paragraph. There are so many ways I think you could probably play with the order of words and such. Can I give you just a bit of time to work this through on your own? As I say, there's many ways, but what I want us to end up doing is connecting these two sentences together. So you might want to consider starting this sentence with a transition of sorts. You might want to consider adding a word or two within the middle here to make the entire piece flow. But this will be the hardest correction I'm asking you to make today in this activity. I'll show you what I've done in a moment, but of course I don't want to influence you quite yet. So we'll see what you come up with. You're aiming for ideas that make sense first off, but you're also aiming for a good variety. You're trying to demonstrate that you know how to use different types of words. So if you could add transitions and conjunctions, that would be even better. But we'll see what you come up with. Ashwati, I'm putting you on the spot. You've not had time to think this over as I have, since I was the one that created the activity. But let us know if you've got any ideas there, especially for the starting. It's always hard to start, but once you start, the sentence writes itself, I think.
Ceylon food should increase its variety of multicultural foods because it only has one aisle of international food offerings. There is little variety. Many immigrants can't find familiar ingredients at Ceylon.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna steal from my audience. Since there is little variety, many immigrants can't find familiar ingredients at Ceylon. They need to shop elsewhere. That's what Ankit says.
Yep.
And then there is Shivam says, as a result, I'm not sure where you want to put it. I'm assuming there is little variety, and as a result, many immigrants can't find familiar ingredients at Ceylon.
Okay, that one works. The only problem is you're leaving open a simple sentence. There is little variety. That's still a really simple sentence. You're just starting the next sentence with the transition, which is a good first step. But what I'd like us to do, if we can, is connect those two ideas together.
So Harman says, right now, there is little variety, but he hasn't given me the other connecting word. I think he just wanted to. So some people, there are many who've just given a starting. So moreover is one, and then
I wouldn't use moreover. No, moreover doesn't make sense here. It's just sort of an extra word signifying that you've got another idea coming, but it doesn't actually attach to the meaning behind what you're talking about. Moreover is a complex transition. From my perspective as an English teacher, I find it terribly overused. So we don't want to just throw that word in any old place. We want to actually choose a word that connects the ideas. So we'll go with maybe one or two more examples, and then I'll show you one that I came up with.
So I want to address this because while in conversational English, this sounds accurate, but it's not while writing because there is little variety. Somebody started with because. Where did you go?
Actually, that would work in writing too. Yeah, you could do that and connect the whole thing. Yeah, that would work.
You can start with because.
Yeah.
Okay, great. That's good to know.
Okay,
because there's little variety. And then I think the last one is, this means that there is little variety. As a result, therefore, many immigrants can't find.
Okay, so you've given us transitions, and that's definitely helpful. And your choice, I think, makes sense. But once again, we haven't really connected those ideas smoothly. So I think we've missed sort of the second step to that. So I'm going to show you, this is definitely a more, I would almost call it advanced, just for argument's sake, to show you what you could do. I went with an adverb, and an adverb is a word that often ends with ly, like the word unfortunately. And an adverb is designed to give more meaning or information about how the action is being done. So right now, as you can see from up top, our opinion is we need more international foods at this grocery store. So it's almost like we're frustrated that we don't have better options. So I chose the word unfortunately because it has that negative connotation associated with it. So that's just how I chose to start the sentence. I could have just said, unfortunately, there is little variety, so many immigrants can't find familiar ingredients. I could have done that, and that would have been absolutely fine. That would have been, a strong, perhaps a sentence structure. But I wanted to really punch it up and work with some emphasis. So you notice I went with the word such, and I wouldn't even call this a transition, to be honest. So I'm going above what I asked you to do. But we use this expression, there is such little variety, because we're really trying to emphasize how little the variety is. It's sort of a descriptive word. And because I added in the word such, it then made me, for grammar's sake, add in an extra word to connect the whole thing. So unfortunately, there is such little variety that many immigrants can't find familiar ingredients at Save-On. So that is a complex sentence structure. I've got an adverb, I've got a word for emphasis. The word that is what we call a relative pronoun. We use who for people. We use that or which for things, like we have here. So these words all help to connect and smooth out the ideas together. So your ideas, of course, were wonderful as well. But if you can look at meaning and how they all attach together, I think that's probably the best way to approach your practice at home. That sentence on its own is quite long, regardless of how you connected those two sentences. I think that's more than enough for one sentence. So what I'd recommend we do here is leave this final sentence on its own. They need to shop elsewhere. But I think it would be helpful if we could add a little transition here. And again, have a look at the relationship. We're basically saying, oh my gosh, there's no variety, so immigrants have to go elsewhere, right? Many immigrants can't find familiar ingredients. Put a transition. Can you suggest a transition now to get us to that final result? That they are going to other grocery stores because they can't find what they need. What would make sense there? I would go with a full-on transition here, just to have some variety is all.
Archit says hence.
Hence, I have to honestly say that's another one that I find terribly overused. It's a little bit old-fashioned. Yeah, it's a little bit old-fashioned. When you say hence, we know what you mean. It's sort of like saying in more modern terms, therefore. It's kind of got the same meaning attached to it. And technically, it would be grammatically correct to use either hence or therefore. But you're now creating such a formal tone that doesn't seem to match the meaning behind this. Yes, we want to be confident and direct with our opinion as we're giving it, but I think we have overshot our goal, and it just doesn't have the same natural usage as other more commonly used transitions to connect. So I would encourage you not to use hence, but I think there's some other words that make a little bit more natural sense.
Okay, I do want to bring up one point, which I addressed as a response in the chat while you were talking, because I'm confident that that's the right answer for them, but I will bring it up because I'm seeing it appear again. So where you've placed unfortunately is where people suggested words like however and even though. Keep that in mind. And then now they need to shop elsewhere. Before that, the first connector, people are suggesting however, which are opposite words. So I want you to address that.
Yeah. However, doesn't make sense here because there's nothing opposite about this. The whole meaning is we don't have any variety at this grocery store, so people are going to have to go elsewhere unless we offer more foods. So that whole situation is as one topic where you're trying to support your rationale. There's nothing opposite about that, right? So we don't want to throw in these words of contrast like however, because it's really going to throw off the reader's content. Unfortunately is a negative word, sure, but that's the whole point. It's a negative word because we are disappointed that we don't have a lot of variety here. So it definitely makes a lot more sense from a meaning standpoint, yeah. I don't see how however would work successfully in this response.
Neither will nevertheless. I just want to bring it up because it's like, it's clashing with the points. I hope you know what I'm like.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And go ahead.
Sorry, Brandy, I just want to give you, like somebody gave a good example of ultimately as a first connecting word.
I would use it here. Ultimately, they would need to shop elsewhere. I think that's perfect. That's wonderful. I hadn't thought of that one. What I came up with, if you don't mind me sharing, is this. I thought this was really easy just to finish the whole thing. So this is another cause and effect situation. So they can't find what they need here. So as a result, they need to shop elsewhere. So it's just a lot more suitable for the tone, right? We're not writing an academic essay. And part of the issue, I think, this is again, just putting my English teacher's hat on and working with so many students preparing for CELPIP, there's a misconception out there or misinformation that you have to use all of these really lavishly complex, long words in your writing and your speaking to earn the best score possible. And I will tell you time and time again that that is not the best approach to your performance on this test, or frankly, in the real world. You're always going to serve yourself better if you use words that are natural, that are used commonly, but are the best choices for the situation you're addressing. So they're context specific, meaning they all fit what we're discussing here. can't find the food, so they need to go elsewhere. I could have said that, but that's a little bit simple, right? I'm using the word so. So instead, I'm saying, as a result, they're going to go shop elsewhere. So it does elevate the sophistication, but it's still using words that are natural and demonstrating the complexity. Anyway, we could play around with this with some more, but are there any final questions about this before we move on? I don't want to ignore, but yeah.
Somebody said, well, I just want to bring up that thus was the biggest, one of the other second most popular suggestion after the hence. And I understand these are very academic words where we are so used to writing as students, but it's, unfortunately not.
Yeah. And again, the CELPIP is a test of your day-to-day communication style. So you always have to recognize, well, who's my audience? Who am I writing for? Am I writing for a university professor that's going to be testing me on my ability to write an essay using formal language? No, you're not. So don't use words like thus, moreover, hence, and so on, right? I'm writing to voice my opinion. Perhaps you can even imagine yourself writing to the manager of this grocery store. Would you address a stranger you don't know with hence and therefore and thus? I wouldn't. It doesn't seem to have the appropriate tone. So if you use words that don't suit the situation, you're creating what's called a tonal error. Your grammar might be fine, and that's a good thing, but you always have to be mindful of your purpose for writing. So I would say that, and again, there is still some variety. So like ultimately they would need to shop elsewhere. That's fantastic. That's natural. That's normal. So again, always be mindful of the words you're choosing for your audience. I say it all the time in my Zoom webinars, and I'll use the platform today on YouTube just to remind you of that. Don't get too fancy or you're going to negatively affect your score. Just go with what makes sense in the context. Anyway, let's move on just for time's sake, if you don't mind, as we have a couple of other activities to get into. I wanted to backtrack to some speaking again, because there are 3 other categories apart from the listenability that we've already examined. So for your speaking responses, the rating team listening to your recordings are going to assess your vocabulary. So they're looking for you to demonstrate a good range. So lots of words that you know how to use accurately, but also naturally. So this sort of follows what we were just talking about with our connections. Your content details have to make sense. They have to be well organized and developed. The more description, the more examples you can throw into the speaking, it's going to make your response a lot more interesting to listen to, which will help your score too. And task fulfillment. Did you follow the test instructions and did you use the right tone? So again, that sort of follows the discussion we just had. Are you supposed to be formal and have you done that? Or are you supposed to be a little bit more casual and do your words reflect that? So if you will humor me just for a moment, we're going to step away from the CELPIP test questions just for a second. We're going to watch a quick little video. It's a cartoon taken from The Simpsons. And for those of you that are not familiar with The Simpsons, I'll let you know that it's a very popular cartoon that has been running for, oh my gosh, it started when I was in high school. So a long time. It's in its 35th season. So in this little clip that we're going to play for you, there are 2 characters, Lisa Simpson and Ralph Wiggums, and it's Valentine's Day. So Valentine's Day is a day for romance, and Lisa has given Ralph a Valentine, and I think he has misunderstood. And as they're leaving the school grounds, he's trying to get to know Lisa a little bit better, probably in a romantic way. So as you're watching this video and listening to these 2 characters talk, I really want you to focus on those speaking errors I've listed on the left-hand side. So what mistake is most obvious to you? Is it something to do with vocabulary? So are the words you're hearing, are they imprecise? And imprecise vocab means the words are just so general, almost like they're memorized ideas. They don't give us any information at all. They're really plain and simple. Or perhaps it's a tone issue. So maybe one of the characters is being too formal or casual, depending on what's common there. Is it an intonation issue? We've already looked at intonation earlier today. Or perhaps it's a relevance issue. So is the conversation all talking about Valentine's and so on? Or are there ideas here that just are so far off topic they no longer make sense? Okay, let's play the video now and you tell me what you think is the most obvious mistake here.
Can I walk you home, Valentine? Sure, I guess. That Valentine sure was funny. Glad you liked it. It says, choo-choo choose me. And there's a picture of a train. Yeah, nice gag. So, Do you like stuff?
Oh, The Simpsons can be funny. All right, I'm hoping this one's obvious, but I don't know. Let me know what you think is the biggest speaking error from the list here.
Hello.
I can tell you.
A is currently the option
Okay.
that's leading.
So far, so good. His the intonation was wonderful, right? You could really hear the inflections up and down and the excitement there as Ralph was talking. So it's definitely not C. They were talking all about Valentine's Day and so on, so it can't be D. So you're left between A and B. A seems to be leading so far. Did
Yes.
anybody select tone?
Nobody chose tone yet. They might after you suggested it, but at the moment, nobody has chosen it.
Well, I'm glad nobody chose tone because the tone is just fine as well. I mean, they're two friends talking. The conversation's pretty casual. Notice they're not using words like moreover and therefore and thus and hence because it wouldn't make sense to do that. It's a conversation between friends, right? So they're using words that would reflect that. But the vocabulary itself is pretty basic. And at the very end of this whole video, Ralph, as he's nervously trying to get to know Lisa, he turns to her and says, "So, do you like stuff?" She looks at him really funny because how would you answer a question? If I said to you, "Do you like stuff?" You would honestly have no idea even how to answer that. The word stuff, the word thing, these words in English mean nothing. They literally could refer to like hundreds of different ideas. So really quickly, this should be an easy fix. Could we just replace the word stuff with something a lot more precise and focused and interesting? And I'll give you one example as you're thinking. What if Ralph was to say to Lisa, "So, do you like going to concerts?" You know, that's a very particular activity. And if I were to say that to someone, we could then talk about all the bands we've seen together, right? So that would be focused. What ideas can you come up with rather than stuff? Let's just do a couple in the live chat there just so we can get thinking about how we want to approach our own development on the CELPIP test. Never stuff. Try not to use that word. Do you like going to concerts? Do you like going to movies? Is kind of the same thing, right? But it's focused. It's a category. What else?
We have to wait for a little bit. But I do want to bring up that that we have a question.
Mhm.
Does intonation have anything to do with pronunciation? Oops.
No, actually, it doesn't. Yeah, your pronunciation is a separate factor. It's just literally enunciating and speaking the parts of the word clearly enough and stressing the words in the right place so that we can clearly identify the individual words that you're speaking to. Your intonation is when the voice will rise and fall in pitch. So you can have perfect pronunciation without any intonation, which is what we heard earlier from that man speaking on his CELPIP test.
Yes. Intonation is feelings.
Yeah, good question. They're separate parts, separate skills altogether. Yeah.
Okay. We have here some suggestions. What do you like doing is one. And then, so do you like going to karaoke nights?
Perfect. Yeah, karaoke is a very precise idea. Yeah, don't ask what do you like doing because it's still so general. Now you're making me do all the thinking. You're the one that wants to get to know me. You put the effort into it. Karaoke, sure, I'd love to go, right? That's what you want to do. What else?
Brandy, you're also helping people learn how to talk to women. Do you like reading?
Yeah, I had that on my list. Do you like reading? You could even push it further. Do you like reading
Dancing?
fiction? Do you like dancing? Perfect. I love it. Yeah, exactly. Do you like traveling? Do you like hiking? Whatever it is, you just want it to be focused enough that you're opening up a whole new category for which you can then develop all the details. Because if I say to you, do you like traveling? And you do, you're going to go, oh, I love it. And then you'll probably say, in fact, last year I took a trip to Japan. And then I might say, oh, me too. I went there 3 years ago. What did you see when you were there? And back and forth. But if I say to you, what do you like doing? It's we're grasping at straws and the conversation will die before it even gets started. Right. So in the real world, yeah, you want to be precise, but on your speaking test and in your writing test as well, the more precise and interesting the word choice is, as long as it's suitable for the task, then the better your score is going to be. So it's just a really good reminder. All right. We have one more little speaking activity to get through here. I've got the picture on screen for you because we need it for this particular situation. It's a speaking task 3 question where you're given a picture and you have to then describe some things that are happening. So I'm going to play for you this response. It's a man describing. Listen to his response and see if you can figure out what the problem is. And I think this one's a little harder just because the factors I've given you here, the possible errors, they're sort of all mixed up from different categories that the rating team is looking for. So figure out for yourself, is this just something to do with organization? Maybe the man is talking out of order and his ideas are just randomly presented and it's confusing. Maybe that's the issue. Perhaps it has to do with vocabulary, with the accuracy. So as the man is describing what's happening, is he describing things that aren't really there? You know, that kind of thing. Relevance again. Is he focusing just on this picture or is he talking about something different? And D has to do with more content. So quality of ideas. So are the ideas interesting and descriptive and well developed? So we'll play this response for you now and you let me know what you think.
Some of the things that are happening in this picture that I'm looking at right now is it's actually a movie area. It's a movie's reception area where you purchase your tickets to go see your movies. There are movie posters and there are a lot of patrons there at the area. There are couples, some already bought their popcorn and is heading into the movies. Some are buying their tickets. Some are now entering where there is the ticket attendant. And there are some now moving in while it's not very busy at the counter.
Okay. There were lots of problems with the listenability section as well. So he spoke slowly, he paused a lot. Those are definitely errors, but I don't want to focus on listenability for this response. There are other mistakes I really want to focus on. So I just thought I'd mention that in case. You probably noticed the slow speech yourself. But of the 4 possible errors listed, there's one that I'm hoping is obvious, and we're going to workshop it together to see how we might improve it.
Hello.
Yeah.
So we have answers all over the place.
Okay.
Nobody picked relevance.
Good. That one's wrong. Good.
I personally thought it was A.
Okay.
I don't think it's B, and please correct me if I'm wrong, because I do think that they picked good words. They picked patrons and they picked accurate words, reception. Yeah. So I don't think it's B. I personally think it's A, but there are options between here. Our audience is giving A, D, and B.
Okay, yeah. Actually, Ashwati's description there was correct. His word choice was accurate. When he was saying there's popcorn, there's posters, there's patrons, all of those words are actually there and they're interesting word choices. Like the word patron, that's a great choice of word rather than just say person, right? So yeah, B is not the right answer here at all. This has to do specifically with the content, the quality of the ideas. They're very underdeveloped. And I'll show you quickly what I mean. The organization, believe it or not, is actually obvious or evident, I guess. He does start off by saying that he's describing a picture and he correctly states it's a movie reception area where you purchase your tickets. So that's his introduction. So he's giving us that general overview that we like to see. And then the middle section is where he's accurately describing the objects or people, posters, patrons, couples, popcorn. The issue is, though, this whole task for speaking task 3 asks us to describe what's happening. And he finally gets to the description part or the action part towards the end of the response. And he does technically give us 4 descriptions, but as you can see yourself, they're all pretty much the same thing. His first description is that the people are heading into the movies. Some are buying their tickets. Some are now entering. Some are now moving in. So all of his description focuses on basically buying a ticket to enter into the theater. So even though, yes, that is exactly what's happening here, we don't have a lot of different ideas. So we haven't described different parts of the scene, and the descriptions that have been given to us are very plain. There aren't any adjectives, adverbs. So looking at this picture, and I don't want to spend too much time as we'll go a little bit over perhaps in time today, But looking at this picture, we need to develop ways to, first of all, identify the particular person in the scene we're looking at. So we want to give some descriptive factors about them. So perhaps you can suggest now, if you wish, pick one part of the scene that you want to work with. And I'd like you to try your best to write a full sentence into the live chat. Might take a bit more time. We'll see how it goes. But notice the color of the clothing that these people are wearing. Perhaps you want to talk about the color of the hair. Maybe it's the age of the people or the facial expressions. So find a way to clearly and precisely identify the person or the people that you're talking about, and then give us the action that they're doing. You can consider also giving us the location as to where these people are. So I've got 3 very high-level examples I'll share with you in a minute, but I want to just get some ideas flowing. And Deshwadi, as always, you're more than welcome to play along at home. Pick the part of the scene that is easiest for you. That's the beauty of your speaking test 3. You won't have time to talk about all these people. So pick something that you already have some pretty solid vocabulary about, and that is obvious to you. That's what I would do.
Ankit and I are still of the opinion that the thoughts weren't organized either.
Okay, yeah. So while the rest of you are getting your sentences in to describe the action that's happening, I'll quickly readdress that point. So the organization is there in the sense that we have an overview of the scene. So our man started talking about how I'm looking at a picture basically of a movie theater lobby where people purchase their tickets. That is the introduction that we absolutely need. And then he starts describing some of the objects, and then he gets to the description of the action. So there is a definite organizational pattern to it. It all makes sense. At no point are we so confused we don't even know what he's talking about anymore. So he's already introduced the posters and the patrons. So when he starts talking, and the popcorn. So when he starts talking about these same people buying their tickets and entering into the theater, it makes sense because we know they're in a movie theater lobby. So the organization is there, the coherence piece is there, but the level of detail is very underdeveloped. It's the weakest part of the response in some of the speech, maybe.
That's a good way to think about it. Okay, yeah. We're talking about the weakest part of the response.
Yeah.
Among the options. Okay, that's
yeah.
That okay, Archit has written a response. In this picture, we're in a cinema lobby. Several people are buying tickets at the counter, and movie posters are on the wall. A staff member is checking tickets at the entrance.
Okay, so you've given us sort of like a little bit of a storyline, which is exactly what you want to do. Yeah. And for everybody else putting their ideas, Archit is one of my star students. He's always participating well in the Zoom chat. So thanks for doing that here on YouTube today as well. You're kind of going above and beyond what I wanted you to do. But that's just it. Once you've described one part of the scene, you do want to then transition it to the next. So once they purchase their tickets, of course, they're going to walk together and stroll into the theater and so on. Yeah, one way to do it. Anybody else want to share? And then I'm going to give you a pretty high level one. So stay tuned for that.
A couple people are actually eagerly waiting for your response, but I did want to bring up that Shivam asks if the test taker can use we instead of as if he's in the scene.
Oh.
W-E.
I'm not sure. I never thought of doing that just because the instructions say, how's the exact wording? You're looking or describe some of the things happening in the picture as best you can. So I think if you said, I'm looking at a picture of several people buying tickets to go watch a movie, and then I would keep it still focused on what's in front of you rather than inserting yourself into the scene. That's how I would do it. Just because you're not asked to put yourself in the scene. And my only concern is with the rating team, count that as not following instructions. I don't know how the rating team would assess that, right? Like if your answer's still correct and you still have all the great descriptions, wonderful. But since you weren't asked to imagine you were in the scene and you went ahead and did that anyway, are you still following test instructions? Like, I'm not even sure how I would answer that. I'm not a rater myself. So I think to be safe, to err on the side of caution, I would just follow the test instructions as they're given to you and try not to be too fancy or creative with that kind of approach.
Okay.
That makes sense.
We have 2 responses now. Would you like me to read them or would you like me to pick one?
Well, go for it. Yeah, let's listen to both of them and then I'll share.
Okay. This is Harman's response. Cinema counter / reception area. A guy in a red t-shirt is buying a ticket along with a lady standing to his left side. However, on the right side, 2 other persons are standing.
Okay, good. Now, I wouldn't say however, because however is a contrast. There's no need to say however. So I liked your description about the colors of the clothes, and to the man's left, there's a woman standing. You might have said she is wearing her purse slung across her body. So there's always details you could add in. But I like that approach. I think that's great. What else?
This is a typical scene at the cinema lobby. In the background, we can see the cinema attendant letting a woman and her daughter to the movie screen. Then in the foreground, I think there's
Okay. I like it. I like it. Yeah. I'm going to show you sort of like a rather an advanced way to approach this. And I'm not doing this to intimidate you. I'm doing this to show you the type of details that you might want to consider adding into your practice at home and how far you can push it to give a description. So this is one sentence altogether. And what I did to start is I said the blonde Cineplex employee. So I didn't just say the lady or the woman, right? I'm trying to go for more precise vocab. And looking at this picture, there's only really one blonde worker for the whole scene. So that's why I decided I would use the color of her hair. And rather than just say worker or employee, I added the word Cineplex. That's just the name of a Canadian movie theater chain that came to me. So I thought it added that extra little bit of description to make it interesting. Notice before the action, I gave you the location. So she is at the end of the ticket counter. So when you look at those three people working behind the counter, well, she's at the end. So that makes sense. You now know exactly who I'm talking about first. And then I hit you up with the description. She is showing, that's the main verb that we need to use there, the ing action. She is showing her colleague how to cancel transactions on the computer screen. So I was trying to be a little creative there because clearly people are buying tickets, right? And at some point, I'm sure I'll use that. Somebody's buying a ticket and so on. That's great. But because we're trying to showcase a variety of ideas here, I needed to come up with something different that this particular associate is doing. I didn't want to talk about tickets. So I asked myself, she's pointing at the computer screen. What else could she be doing? There's two of them standing there. So the first thing that came to my mind is, oh, she's basically showing him or training the colleague how to cancel transactions. I just thought it made sense, something different. Anyway, I also talked about that fellow in the red sweater. So I said the man in the bright red sweater. I try to throw in adjectives when I can, not just a red sweater, but it's a bright red sweater. He's handing his credit card to the young attendant behind the counter. And I think my idea was similar to the one that you've just shared. And last but not least, the woman in the green dress. There's only one of them in this whole picture. She's pointing. Now, I could have just said that, is pointing at the two Cineplex associates. I threw in another descriptive word. This is another adverb. It's an ly word. It says she's pointing expectantly at the two Cineplex associates. Remember, an adverb gives you information about how the verb is being done. So she's not just pointing, she's sort of expecting her partner and her to run over to that ticket counter to make their purchase. So adding in these little touches, that's all it is. A bright red sweater. She's pointing expectantly. If we can pepper our response with these little descriptive words here and there, just to make it more interesting, that will help the score as well. At the two Cineplex associates, and then who are standing behind the counter waiting to sell tickets. And what makes this a more advanced level approach is I've got three different actions in the same sentence. So the woman is pointing, those two associates are standing, and they're also waiting to sell tickets. So the more action you can give and the more variety in the actions you can give, the more you are fulfilling the task as well. So I just thought I'd point that out. Anyway, I think that's enough practice for today. I'm going to come back to you and see if we've got any questions for you to ask. You can ask about speaking, you can ask about writing. If we have any other questions about how to make things better, that would also be ideal. Let me know.
Hello.
Hello.
No, we don't have any questions yet. I will wait for questions to come in. But we do have a question in general. Can we use connectors like whereas, however, and however in task 3 of speaking?
It would totally depend on your ideas. So to answer that question, I'd have to see sort of what your first idea was and then what the second idea was. If for some reason you have a contrasting idea, then it would make sense to use however. I'm thinking in my mind about that picture we just saw. Yeah, I can't think of any contrasting ideas there because all the people in that scene are waiting to do the same thing. They're all waiting their turn in line to get a ticket and then go into the theater. If somebody was leaving the theater altogether, that would make sense. It wasn't in that picture, but if you went on at length about people handing their credit cards and buying tickets and entering the lobby, you might just say, however, there's one man that has decided to leave the theater instead of seeing a show. Like that would make sense. And you could say that. It completely depends on what is actually happening in the picture, though, before you start making these situations up. You always have to talk about what's in front of you if you want to get task fulfillment marks for answering correctly. Yeah, good question, Payal. Yeah. And again, I just want to emphasize, Ashwati touched on this and I'll re-emphasize it. Using these strong connection words is helpful, yes, but only when you use them at the right time. Please don't ever feel that you have to use words like whereas and however to get a stronger vocabulary score. If you're using those words and it doesn't make sense to use them, even though the word all by itself is interesting, the meaning is no longer correct, right? So you always have to look at the big picture. Speak naturally or write naturally. Yeah. Good question, though.
Shivam, I don't understand your question. In speaking, do we need to start with like?
I wouldn't use that word at all. Yeah. I consider words like sort of as an interjection. And it's okay to interject from time to time when you say and but the word like, if we insert it into the middle of an idea, it just sort of interrupts the flow of the idea. And it doesn't actually give any value at all or any interesting content. So I would try my best not to use that word. It is a habit of speaking. If you ever take our Zoom webinars, we've got a really good example of this. I forget, it's a speaking webinar anyway. And the woman has such a great answer, but all the way through the response and just about every sentence, she says, like, and it drives me crazy. I just want to get right to the idea already, right? And so I say, record your practice at home because sometimes we speak with these filler words or interjections and we don't even know we're doing them, right? Yeah, a lot of us do that. So always record yourself and detect it. If you notice you're saying the same word over and over, you just have to be mindful of it. And when you catch yourself saying it the next time as you're practicing, just stop for a moment and restart without that word. And hopefully that will train the brain to just stop it already.
Okay, so I understood Shivam's question. I think he meant to say, do we need to address the name? So his original question was in two parts. In speaking, do we need to start with like, hi, Jane?
Okay. Well, I'm glad we asked your question anyways. Speaking task 3, you can absolutely do that because part of the instructions say the person to whom you are speaking cannot see the picture. So you have to make it clear that you're actually talking out loud to somebody. Most people just imply that by saying, I'm looking at a picture of many customers buying tickets in a movie theater lobby. When I say it like that, it's clear that I'm talking to someone, right? I'm looking at a picture of. If you wanted to be absolutely direct and just role play it, you totally could. You could just say, hey, Shivam, I'm looking at a picture of many customers buying tickets and so on. And that would fulfill the instruction. The rating team will say, yes, you're talking to a person as you were asked to do. And on we go. So that's fair game for your speaking task 3 for sure.
Okay. We have a few questions actually. Brandi, just want to like manage your expectations.
Sure.
Is it acceptable to not have a conclusion sentence in the end?
Yeah, I'd say it's acceptable. We try our very best to conclude if we can. I think especially in our picture tasks, like task 3 and 4, you're so focused on describing first the action as it's happening in task 3. And then task 4 is about making future predictions. Most test takers I work with, sometimes even when I do practice, we get so involved with that time is up and all we've done is answer the question. And that's fine. You're still going to score well if you followed all the rules of assessment with your content, your vocab, and your speech. It's advisable and encouraged if you can think of saving yourself about 5 seconds just to add in a brief conclusion at the end. It just really emphasizes the structure. So for that movie theater question, if it was my actual test question in real time, I might say something like, I always come up with a generic phrase like, oh, it's a very busy day in the movie theater lobby, or hopefully everybody will enjoy the film, or just something like that at the end, just to make sure it's finished. And when I say that, it's clear that I have nothing more to add. So yeah, it's a nice to have element. I think it would help the organization. But honestly, if you don't include it and everything else is done quite well, as I say, with content and vocab and speech and so on, you're still going to score quite well. It's not going to have a drastic effect on your score. But play around with that at home. If you practice it that way, you'll always remember to do it in the real test. Yeah.
It's like having a conversation with a new person that you just met, and you're like, how do I end this conversation? How do I let them know that I want to move away from here and I have done talking? What
Exactly.
would you say then?
You'd be like, anyway, great talking to you today. I'll see you later, or see you soon, or see you next time, or something like that. Yeah.
In task 5, do we have to name the product or item every time, or can we say your option and my option?
Ooh, I never want you to say your option or my option, because those words are sort of like stuff and thing. They don't tell us anything at all. So just for our viewers wondering what we're talking about here, task 5 in speaking gives you 2 different pictures or options to select between. You're always role playing. So I'll use an example coming to mind. Perhaps it's a picture of 2 different types of homes. One's a cottage and one is an apartment building, let's say. So you have to role play to your family, which is the better choice. So if you're trying to convince them that you're going to rent an apartment instead of moving to a cottage in the woods, I want you to use those words: apartment, apartment building, rental, cottage, a dwelling in the woods, a little cabin. Do you see how much more interesting and precise those words are? If I just say your option, blah, 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 my option, do, we lose sight of what these options are even in the first place. Yeah. So you always want to go on precise vocab. Never use. And the same goes for writing. Your writing task 2 gives you 2 options as well. And they're labeled on the test instruction screen as option A and option B. I don't ever want you to use option A and option B in the writing. I want you to use actual vocabulary words that precisely identify what the option is. Great, I would gladly give up my 2 vacation days to go to the hotel for training. You know exactly what I'm talking about. But if I say option B sounds good to me, you have no idea what I'm talking about now, right? So it's always a matter of you doing the work for your reader or listener, so there's no misunderstanding or confusion as to what you're talking about precisely. If you can do that in the real world and on the CELPIP test, you've got it covered.
Okay, so we have many questions, and I'm going to make sure that I ask you questions that are more specific over generic questions that we've answered before, and we can get to if time permits. Okay, use of might. It seems to me that it's okay to use might in task 3, or do we need to be direct and show strong points or strong opinions, I guess?
Yeah, I know you're not going to use might in task 3. You're going to use might in task 4. So task 4 is where you're making predictions about things that could possibly happen. The boy might drop his sandwich. The girl could have a stomach ache. The mother will probably scold her child, right? That kind of thing. That's all going to be suitable for the actual predictions you're making. But when you are answering speaking task 3, it is describing what is happening right now. And there's no might, maybe, possibly about it. It's totally up to you to describe with as much accuracy and precision as you can, depending on what you're seeing. So again, think back to some of the descriptions even, and some of you nailed it, talking about the man in the red sweater is paying for tickets and the woman is standing beside him waiting to go into the theater. That is exactly what's happening. The man is not going to possibly give his credit card. He's in the process of doing that. Yeah. So if you're going to use words like might in task 3, you're not following the instructions. You're not describing what's happening now. And you're also presenting yourself as being less confident, which is not going to help your content or your vocab score. So I'm really glad you asked that. I hope everybody takes note of that. Use your words wisely to answer the question and also showcase the right time frame. If it's happening now, it's happening now. If it's happening in the future, well, then it maybe is going to happen. If you see what it. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Are they connected? If I said before in task 3 about person, location, dress, is this okay to skip it in task 4? Or do we need to say it again and to describe about the person's future actions?
Not entirely. So in speaking task 3, you'll notice in my examples, I took the time to really identify for the listener who exactly I'm talking about. So the blonde Cineplex associate standing at the end of the counter, I give you that first, and then is pointing to the computer screen, right? That all makes sense. And that's the way I would approach this in task 3. In task 4, no, you're describing, by the way, for the prediction activity in task 4, it's the same picture. that you worked with in task 3, except now you're talking about future predictions. So you're not expected to give an overview of the scene in task 4. You don't have to spend as much time on really establishing who these people are, because you've already done that. In task 4, you still, though, want to give enough information that we know exactly who you're talking about, because you need to make that future prediction. So thinking back to that movie theater scene in my mind, I don't know if you noticed, there was this young couple walking away from the ticket counter, and they were holding these large tubs of popcorn. So if I had to make a prediction, all I would say there is the young couple holding the gigantic bucket of popcorn will accidentally trip and drop that popcorn so that it spills all over the floor. So I gave you my predictions. I mean, you could see that happening. Anybody could trip and there goes the popcorn. But I did take a moment right at the beginning to say the young couple walking with the popcorn. You need to know who I'm talking about first before I get into the prediction. But again, it's not quite as developed. Like, just identify the people and spend most of your time on the prediction, if that makes sense, right? Yeah. I hope I answered that. I don't feel I answered that as clearly as I could have, but I hope it makes sense.
Okay. I think structural writing test. Okay. Please describe the best approach. Okay, Archit, you're asking a reading question, which I will ask later, because this is about writing and speaking, like you correctly mentioned. Okay. I have a question that which connectors really push a response into from CLB 10 to into CLB 10 and 12 range?
Yeah, there's no such thing. So this is, Archit, great question. This is a common question, but it's also a common misconception. So there's no handbook that says, if you use these 5 conjunctions, you're automatically going to get level 10. No such thing in English exists. Any language is so subjective, and there are so many different ways that we can communicate the exact same idea. As you saw today, when we were working through that connecting activity, we all had different ways of approaching it, right? So the way that you achieve your CLB 10 to 12, those are more advanced level skills. In order to earn that score, it's not just about connections. My goodness, that is one factor of about 20 that the speaking and writing teams are looking for. To demonstrate advanced level skills, what you want is very precisely well-developed content details. So the main idea is presented, and you've got probably 1 or 2 supporting details to really support them further. Your vocabulary word at that level, we're not seeing words like stuff and things so much at that level. Advanced level writers have practiced enough that they know we have to give really precise ideas. I'm not even talking about a house anymore. I'm talking about a semi-detached family dwelling, right? So I'm really upping the ante there and going for broke with my vocabulary. If it's a speaking thing, of course, all of those elements of listenability need to be obvious. Pronunciation's clear, intonation's evident, and so on. Task fulfillment, did you answer the question? Did you give enough detail to complete the answer? So to earn a level 10 to 12, you have to be demonstrating all of those major strengths across all 4 areas of the checklist there, right? Content, vocab, either writing or speaking skills, and then the task fulfillment. So it's just absolutely impossible to say. In fact, somebody might even, their sentence structures might not even be that interesting. I've seen this in level 10 and 12. Some of the sentence structures are a little bit repetitive, and we see a few more of these common conjunctions, perhaps like but and so. But if every other factor of the rating checklist has been demonstrated with such precision and with such advanced level, it's still very possible to earn that advanced level score too. So it's really always about the overall picture. It's never looking at one particular teeny tiny skill to make the difference in a different score. So important that everybody recognizes that. And that's one of the hardest things to get people to wrap their minds around for both speaking and writing. It's always the big picture. It's never just one element. Yeah, great question, Archie. Get it all the time. And I hope my answer today is getting you thinking about what I mean here. I see other people in the chat had the same question, Archie. So there you go. Glad to have you ask it for them on their behalf.
Okay, so somebody asked about XYZ manager. I'm going to quickly respond, and the answer is no. Always pick a specific name of a place instead of XYZ or ABC. It bodes well for you if you are specific versus generic.
Yeah. And you would never do that in the real world, right? Like you would never address an email to, hey, ABC manager, right? So if you wouldn't do that in the real world, don't do it on the CELPIP test either. As Ashwati says, it's a test of your natural ability to communicate. And good communication is all about being clear and precise anyway, regardless of where you're writing. So yeah, always wise to use precise names when you can.
Okay, so Harshpreet wants to know suggestions about writing or structures for writing tasks. Sorry, I know that's a very generic question, but that's the last question we're going to be addressing at the moment, because I'm sure Brandy will cover a lot of your questions in that question. So go for it, Brandy.
Okay, I'm actually, again, I'm not entirely clear what you're asking, to be honest, because when you say what are some structures for writing, that word structure is quite imprecise. So I don't know if you're asking me right now if I could provide an outline of how you're supposed to do an introduction, middle, and conclusion. I don't know if you're asking me about how to support content details. So I'm really not clear what the question's all about. So the word structure, I would have liked a more precise word. I'm just going to take a wild guess at it, and I'm going to use writing task 1 as an example, because we have to have something in mind to discuss structure. Your writing task 1 is an email. You absolutely must have a greeting, because we need to know who you're writing to. So we've just discussed that. It's going to be a precise name. If it's a formal email, you're using dear. If it's a man you're writing to, it's Mr. with the last name. So that's a given. Dear Mr. White, let's pretend. The very first paragraph you write about in an email is going to be short, couple of sentences. Any first paragraph is an introduction, and its sole purpose is to give enough background information to the reader that they can already understand what your main ideas are going to be about in the middle part as you continue writing. So in an email situation, you're pretty much summarizing the situation from the test question in your own words, and you're including the reason why you're writing. So to use an example question I workshop with my students in Zoom, we're writing to a famous writer to invite them into our elementary school classroom to be a guest. So we need to make that clear in our opening, so that when this elementary school teacher is reading it, they understand, oh, gee, Brandy's grade 3 class at Maple Ridge School wants me to come be a guest speaker. They need to know that right away. 2 sentences will do it. Every single middle paragraph you talk about, and you'll want to have more than one middle paragraph. Each paragraph has one main idea, and you're following instructions from the test. In an email question, it's super easy in the way of the main ideas, because you've got 3 or 4 bulleted points. You have to address all of those points anyway, so the structure is given to you. You write one paragraph all about the first bulleted point, identify what it is. In this sample test question I'm thinking of, we have to introduce this teacher to our school and our class. So we write one paragraph about that. It's up to you, though, and this is the structural part, it's up to you to come up with your details. So you're not just going to say, I teach children in Vancouver. You need to do better than that. I teach 25 grade 3 students at Maple Ridge Elementary School, right? So you're adding in all of those details. And then when you have a different main idea, maybe now it's you're suggesting an activity this teacher can do with the students. That's one of the things we have to write about. It's a different middle paragraph and so on. You finish off all of those test instructions in the middle of the email. The middle is always where the specific details belong. You have a very brief concluding statement. It won't be long, 1 sentence, perhaps 2. And it's going to emphasize the whole purpose for writing in the first place. So in this case, if we were trying to invite a school teacher to visit us, we might say something like, we hope you can visit our classroom and we look forward to your reply. It's done. We don't have to overthink that because all the details have been done in the middle, right? And then you have your sign off, probably sincerely or regards, and then you have your signature. So structures for writing will always follow that sort of order of ideas, introduction with background, all the specific ideas in the middle in several paragraphs, one for each main idea, and then a brief conclusion of summary. So that's kind of the structure I would suggest. And again, it's applicable to any piece of writing, not just for CELPIP, but also in the real world too. I hope that answers your question. I took a stab at it as far as structure went, and I hope that makes sense.
Okay, thank you, Brandy. I think that's the last question for you. We do have some other questions about generic, like admin and housekeeping related questions, which I can answer. So thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you on our next episode.
See you next time. Bye-bye.
Okay, thank you all for watching and being part of our CELPIP Live episode. We really appreciate the interactions. Can you give us some tips to improve vocabulary? We do have, I think the last episode we did was entirely dedicated to vocabulary, so please do check it out. It was on August 28th. Please check out that episode to learn more about how to improve your vocabulary and how to use vocabulary strategically so you can bump up your score. Some questions about AI. We have a hybrid AI human rating system. I would encourage you to check our website for more information. Which means that we do have humans looking at your answer sheet to make sure that you are scored accurately. The last thing that I will say before we get on to our trivia question is that we are looking for, we're looking to interview CELPIP test takers who've taken the CELPIP test recently. If you are located in Vancouver or in British Columbia, well, Vancouver, we'd like for you to come into our office and film you. But if you're not located in Vancouver and you would still like to share your story, we would like for you to apply. Please go to celpip.ca/mystory. My producer will send, well, it's here in the screen, but my producer will also put the link in the chat. And then you go click on the share your story orange button, and then it's like a small form that you have to fill. It literally takes you 2 minutes. We only want, the form is there just for us to know what direction to take the episode in, or like the filming in. So like if in the form we'll ask you which section was your favorite, which section was your least favorite. And then if we find that if you find that the response skews more towards one thing than the other, we'll ask you about that. So the form is just for us to know how to direct your interview, but we are looking for test takers, and we're not going to leave you empty-handed. We will thank you for your efforts, and there's a reward at the end. So definitely do apply if you're interested to share your story and help other test takers. Okay. Let me talk about the trivia question. So the trivia question was, which island is home to Canada's smallest mountain? I actually don't know the answer to this, but somebody answered in the beginning. Tawfiq said Canada's smallest recognized mountain is Mount Pleasant on Kings Island. Let's find out if that's the right answer. It's Dundas Island. I'm sorry, Tawfiq. If I had known that it was wrong, I wouldn't have shared it, but I don't know. So I'm so sorry. It's Dundas Island, but no, thank you for participating, and I really appreciate that somebody responded to the trivia question. All other information can be found on our website, so I would encourage you to go to celpip.ca if you're interested in writing the test to immigrate to Canada, and then celpip.au if you are writing the test to immigrate to Australia. Yes, Australia now accepts CELPIP test scores for immigration and visa purposes, so definitely do keep that in mind when you are writing the CELPIP test. Thank you so much for joining us, everybody, and we will see you next time. Bye.